fam. It's Tuesdays with Tawana. Grateful to be here on another Tuesday. I'm tired, but welcome to Tuesdays with Tawana. I am Dr. Tad, your host and your curator for this 30 minutes together as we build community one episode at a time. Your girl has been working and all over the place, and I must pay attention to my body and get some rest because it is treatment week, and usually I have treatment on Mondays, but we had to make some changes, so I have treatment tomorrow and just need to get my body ready for that. So anyway, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you are here because you just rock with me all the time, it's just always good to see you. And a few things. This is not about me talking for the entire 30 minutes. This is about inserting your voice into this narrative as well as we build community one episode at a time. We don't build community with just Tawana's voice at a time. So if you want to just say hey, or you have comments, questions, concerns, you don't agree, whatever, put it in the comments and we will insert your comments into the narrative. Hey, Mother Carolyn, good to see you. So we're at a special time today, 3:00. I flew in from speaking at a conference, the Colorado Advocacy in Action Conference, and I was one of 3 panelists, and it was absolutely amazing. And then had to catch a 5 a.m. flight to get back to Denver because I had some things to do, not only with work, but personally, including blood work to prepare for treatment on tomorrow. So yeah, it's been pretty busy. So today, yes, Mother Carolyn, I will get some rest. I will take care of myself. I must say, some of my teammates, we've been talking about, scheduling and how, we schedule time off, or if we're out of the office for a reason, and then when we come back to a plethora of meetings, and we really need to do things a little differently, like have a little time on the front end, have a little time on the back end. So Mother Carolyn, I received that, and we'll definitely start looking at before and after, and not just the days that I am facilitating, meeting, traveling, whatever it is, because I am experiencing some challenges with my body. I'm dealing with challenges with sleeping at times. So, hey Jan, good to see you. It's been a minute. I miss you. Yes, I'm glad you're here. So, yes, Mother Carolyn, I will listen to you and to my beloved colleagues at Soul to Soul Sisters. We all must rest and take care of ourselves. We follow not only reading the words of Trisha Hersey, but also living it out. And we must rest. Rest is resilience. Rest is healing. Rest is taking care of ourselves. And we can't build community without resting. We must rest, because when we rest, we then replenish our energy. We replenish what's going on up here. We replenish what's going on here. We replenish what's going on and how we connect with the universe. We replenish because, racial battle fatigue is real. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today: safe space, sacred space, and brave space. And all three of those things I experienced over the last couple of days, well, for the last few years, but in particular, what inspired this particular conversation was safe space, sacred space, and brave space. So I am, wow. Hey, Pam. Good to see you. And that's Johns Hopkins calling me. I know they're going to call me and tell me they're going to cancel my treatment, but that's another conversation. Yes, rest is self-care. We talked about self-care during what the panel discussion. The panel discussion was focused on domestic violence and domestic violence and IPV. So we talked about self-care and loving yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to conform to what the Western world offers as self-care. Like, manicures are great, massages are great, and we could and should and have an opportunity to be mindful of self-care and the practices that we do for self-care that's not co-opted by other cultures. We should truly understand the historic divine meaning of meditation or smudging or burning sage, and those are divine cultural things that often are co-opted because we live in the United States, and everything that we create as people of color, as a BIPOC community, others then snatch it up and make money from it. And that's not what we do when we're building community. A silly example is, in Arnold Palmer, lemonade and sweet tea. That was our thing. And now, Arizona and whoever else, whatever other companies are now making mad money off of it, which is so ridiculous. Yes, Jan said, yes, indeed. Rest, rest, rest. Radical self-care and extreme, like really going in and taking care of self. The Reverend Dr. Sister Carol Watkins Ali. I just quoted you yesterday on the panel, and I got your message, and we will talk. I was only in Denver for a short period of time, and as you may have heard, I left. My flight was at 5:00 this morning, so I didn't get a chance to engage and see anyone. But during the panel discussion, I said that we will not kill ourselves for the revolution. And I first heard that. I don't know if it's original to the Reverend Dr. Carol Watkins Ali, but that's where I first learned it, from her divine prowess, from her leadership, from her truth to power, to her work in HIV and AIDS awareness and womanist acumen and all the other things. And I'm just honored that she's here with us on the call on today. So I think I see Pammy on the line today. What's going on? I see y'all doing great things with The Conversation Continues. Yeah, she said, Pammy said, I need to learn how to meditate without, say more. It stopped right there, without. But in meditation, it's important to learn, your chakras, and it's important to learn the culture and to honor the culture. And in order to honor the culture, especially for those who are oppressing us or dehumanizing us, it's very challenging for you to do those things and to meditate. Right? Meditation is communal. Meditation brings us together into this sacred space. Meditation is, yes. And you know what, Pammy? I learned that it is okay for your mind to go in other places. You take a deep breath and you bring it back. So it's okay. I follow Deepak Chopra, specifically Debbie Brown, a sister of color, and I learn a lot from her and learn a lot from that part of my self care ritual because it is indigenous to who I am as a Black woman. We had indigenous practices from the beginning of time. And then when we were taken from our homeland and brought here, then all of our culture and our language and our rituals and our communal prowess, all of that was taken away from us, by separating us, by death, by rape, by, living condition. I mean, the list goes on and on. The list goes on and on and on. So it is okay, Pammy, to your mind to wander, and then you bring it back and you center yourself and you ground yourself. But those things happen when you are a part of community, loving community, beloved community. When you meditate, the meditation is not individual, right? And we know that according to the article White Supremacy Culture, which we're struggling with the word culture when it comes to white supremacy, but that's the name of the article, so I'm going to honor that. But it's very one way. It's all about me, very individualistic. That is antithetical to what ritual is about. So when we talk about creating sacred space, it's not just about lighting candles, aromatherapy, burning sage, Palo Santo, chanting and praying or sitting in silence. All of that is valid and sacred, and it is about our culture, indigenous culture, people of color. I had a beautiful opportunity when I was on the panel yesterday to sit with two indigenous beloveds, and it was so powerful. And I never sat on a panel with indigenous beloveds. I've, attended events where our indigenous beloveds were keynote speakers, but to sit in that, you could just feel the energy and the power, and I just kept sitting there just imagining how we feel with the layers of trauma that we have had to deal with from being snatched from our home to this place, to be dehumanized and to be oppressed and marginalized and killed. And just imagine the same thing for our indigenous beloved who were here. And not only did all those things happen to them, but then their land was taken away, and this country is still trying to destroy their culture and the land that they're on, and how they preserve the land so that we can live, because we are a part of the land. When we breathe, the land needs us and we need the land. And they are trying to destroy rainforests, and it's really going to destroy our ecosystem, and our ecosystem is what we need to live. But yet, if white people don't have that power and control, and again, I always talk about this, I don't use blanket statements. So it's not like all Black people do this or all white people do that. And at the same time, there is a history and actions that have not been, no one is taken accountability for. There is no forgiveness being asked. There is no confession. There's no, this is what my forefathers and foremothers did, and this is what I want to do to help to right the wrongs. Reparations is no accident that I have on this shirt today, reparations right now. So when we talk about a sacred space, it's not for everybody. That is not about community. That's not about a higher power or our higher power, our divinity coming together. and sharing in community together. It doesn't work together. You're here, Tony. I see you. Thank you for making it. I know it's a different time, so thank you for making it. So it's very challenging for me to look at folk who are racist and who are focused on power and control and individualism and dehumanizing me as a black woman, as a woman with locks, as a woman, driving down. Like, there was a couple that was sitting in a park. They were just sitting and looking at the water or something, and this white woman comes running. What are you doing here? Bitch, what? Are you serious? Like, so unbelievable. Like, we can't even sit in the park anymore. We can't knock on the door to get our property. The mother knocked on the door where her child was playing and left an iPad, and then the homeowner shot through the door and killed this beloved mother of 4, and the person still has not been arrested. So when we talk about sacred space, clearly sacred space is not happening for us. So we build these spaces for community to insert a sacred narrative into this place, this space, this culture, and using our divinity to create this sacred space. So as we move from sacred space to safe space, now they're not the same thing. With an organization, we oftentimes I hear with like different organizations and different people, womanists that I listen to, I rock with, a safe space. It's not necessarily safe for us. Knocking on the door is not necessarily safe for us. Sleeping in our bed is not necessarily safe for us. Driving in a nice car is not necessarily safe for us. Walking down the street in a neighborhood that may not be our neighborhood, quote unquote, may not be safe for us. So when we talk about safe space, is it really safe for us? Is this nation really offering a safe space for us to live and not die at the hands of systemic ills? So I personally stopped using the word safe space, especially with the organization that I co-founded, because we would do facing racism with white people, and sometimes white people would say things that were very harmful. White people would say things that caused so much harm that after a session and an experience, we had to sit there and just release and cry and just let it out, because it's like, are you serious? Are you really saying that to me as a white person to a black woman? So it's not always a safe space when you're doing any type of justice work. Pammy said, the only place I feel safe is my home. And bless you, because I'm sure Breonna Taylor, who should have been 30 yesterday, thought she was safe in her home. When I went to Dubai, I people, asked how was my experience, and I said, I didn't realize how unsafe and how I did not or do not experience peace in the United States. Like, when I was in Dubai, I felt safe. I felt at peace. Not to say that Dubai is perfect. Well, it was perfect for me for the little over a week that I was there. But I didn't feel fearful for my life. I mean, and I didn't realize how much anxiety we have to live with every day, just driving down the street, just going to work, just taking our children to school while I'm at work, worried about my kids at school, worrying about somebody shooting up a school. There was another mass shooting, I think it was last week. So all of this anxiety going into a supermarket. I can't even go into a supermarket anymore without looking around to see if something might happen. So all of that, it doesn't make it safe for me, for us as Black beloveds, and having to deal with racism, or the description when Michael Brown was killed. It was because of his size. He was intimidating and scary, and the police felt threatened for their life. But what about, Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin, who were this big? It's all about skin color, and my skin color should not be the reason for you to cause harm to me. So it's hard and it's challenging being safe. Yeah, Tony said being safe at home is questionable these days. And if you are safe at home, honor that, cherish it. Bless you. I don't take it for granted. It happens, there are places where we may feel safe. I remember a church used to be safe. And then, you have had the mass shooting in the AME church, in Jewish synagogues, in mosques. Then you have the patriarchy going on in the church and domestic violence not being addressed. So the list goes on and on and on. So my point is, when we talk about safe space, I offer this to be mindful when we are talking about safe space versus sacred space, and inserting this divine narrative in what we do. And it still doesn't, unfortunately, it may not make us feel safe, but when we are in community and we are, one band, one sound, we are, protesting, we are doing and making change. Tim Scott made a fool of himself on The View yesterday, acting dumb like he didn't know about systemic racism. We got to fight that together. When we fight it together, then we create this brave space, right? This brave space to fight against the ills that have been a part of this country from its inception, of what they call the United States. There, our beautiful, beloved indigenous people were here before that. So this place existed. It existed in a negative way once the colonizers came and, started a massacre and killing folk. And it no longer became the space that it used to be. Tanisha said, begs the question, what is safe and safety? I'm always, in some ways, the words feel delusional. Now they do now, right? Even from, when we track our fight and our revolutionary prowess, when were we really safe? We had to fight and escape. We know stories of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. And then we kind of moved into, the Black Panther movement and Freedom Riders and other groups that had to fight for their right to live. We went through the civil rights movement, and then our leaders were being killed. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and or Fannie Lou Hamer dying of breast cancer because she didn't have access, because she was a Black woman, to care for her. So all of these things, it is delusional, Tony. Like, is it real? Is this thing some abstract thing that we created, or they created, and we just have not had access to it? Is this another thing to add to the list that we have not had access to? So when we talk about brave space, we talk about going into spaces like the panel discussion that I had yesterday that had several hundred people, a diverse group of people, and we spoke truth to power. We spoke truth to power. talked about domestic violence, talked about intimate partner violence, talked about ways in which we are disproportionately impacted by these things because of, not because of anyone's fault, if you will, but because of what has been given and created and deemed for us in community, for us to be harmed, for us to be ignored, for us to die at the hands of somebody else who is an abuser. Hiding the fact that our leaders are, abusive, whether it is law enforcement, whether it is clergy folk, whether it is politicians, things that go on behind the door, behind closed doors, and how the one who is being abused then is forced into silence and fear and don't feel safe, so they don't say anything. But how can they create a brave space? By us coming together in community and being that voice and protecting one another, so that we don't have to deal with feeling unsafe every day when we are driving down the street, or walking and playing in someone's backyard, or coming from the store with the Arizona and Skittles, or sleeping in our bed, or driving our car with our tail light busted, or there were several incidences with driving a car with a licensed gun, having the right to carry in that particular state, and still being killed in front of your partner and your child. So how do we shift this? We shift this in community. We begin to shift the narrative and push back and tell white folk to dismantle what you have started. It is not our axe to grind. It is not for us to necessarily be the ones to bear the brunt of the work. What we do is build community within ourselves, pull in our resources, which is financial resources, spiritual resources, physical resources, communal, whatever it is. We are building community to speak out against those that cause this life to be unsafe for us, and even take away the sacred piece of our lives, and saying that we are not divine, that we do not have a divine prowess, that we should not be leading in spaces and places of leadership, whether it is in a religious space, or in political space, or in educational space. They're taking books away and telling folk they can't dress a certain way. And so how do we then combat this? We create the brave space for us to come together and to dismantle all of the stuff that we have been forced to live with. And we then behave in a way and act in a way and come together in a way that is against the status quo. And money talks. Money talks over a lot. So if we begin to take the trillions of dollars that we have in the Black diaspora, and if you add the entire BIPOC collective, which is probably for another podcast, because there are still some challenges with the AAPI community and with the Latin community, because we're too dark. Right? The closer you are to white skin, the more accepted you are. And oftentimes they are then brainwashed into thinking that they can push us to the side so that they can get their share, their due, their piece of the pie, and fall into this trap of white supremacy. So we must create a brave space that honors one another, that has this curiosity. We talked about this in the panel yesterday. Talk about this curiosity about how are you showing up in this world? Help me to understand. Let us talk. Let us have this dialogue. And what can I do to help in this situation to combat the status quo so that you and I can live together and we can all have access. We can all heal from the, all of the ills, the physical ills that we have to go through, and the financial ills, and the redlining, and the lack of resources in school. It's going to take white people, and Paulo Freire and Alice Walker alludes to this. It's going to take us to free the oppressed and the oppressor. Mother Carolyn said, thank you for sharing solutions, because many times we hear the problems without solution. We hear in community. So I offer you today, as we think about what is safe space, sacred space, and brave space. How do you show up in those spaces? And what can you do to show up in those spaces in community so that you don't have to do this alone? You don't have to fight this fight alone. You don't have to fight the lack of access to healthcare alone. You don't have to fight the racist ways and white supremacy and patriarchy alone. You don't have to fight for an education for your child alone. You don't have to, fight for equal pay or even more pay, right? So with that, I say all that. I offer to you just an opportunity to reflect on this and to bring yourself some semblance of peace, some semblance of communal bravery, and creating a space for that divine prowess in you to manifest, so that we can not live in this proverbial safe space, but we can actually be safe. I forgot to turn my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm sorry. So with that, I'm Dr. Tad with Tuesdays with Tawana. I love you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. I truly appreciate you, and I will see you on next Tuesday. I am going to rest, so I will holla at you later. I'm out. Peace.